mental practice. You've probably already heard about it. It's very important if you're a musician, no matter if you're a pianist or another musician. But as you can see, I'm also traveling quite a lot. So it's not always possible to practice at the piano. And in this video I want to give you the most important hacks when it comes to mental practice, what you have to consider in order to be successful with it. My name is Aaron Pilsan. I'm an international concert pianist. I'm in Siena, in Italy, in the beautiful Tuscany today. This is the famous Piazza del Campo. Just had a wonderful pizza and cafe. And now I'm talking to you about mental practice, what I do and what you should do if you want to succeed with mental practice at the piano. First and foremost, it's a very good tool if you have pain, if you have problems, if you practice too much physically and you get tired after some time, then you can actually replace it with mental practice. And it's proven that if you do it properly, then it has the same effect as real practice. Even athletes do that sometimes when they prepare for a competition, that they just think about their movements and it actually has the same impact. So not just the emotional, intellectual qualities from the practice can be practiced mentally, also the pure physical aspects of it can be practiced mentally. So that's a good moment to do it. Another one is if you are, as I am very often, on a plane, or on a bus, on a train, and you cannot practice because you're traveling the whole day, then you can just load it on your iPad or on your sheet music and read through it and practice like that. Now, how should you do it first and foremost? Of course, mostly when you practice mentally, you will play through the piece, not like when you're actually playing it on the piano, then you want to stop very often to actually rehearse technical aspects. But even then, with the mental practice, you should stop. If you cannot imagine the piece perfectly, so you have to, first of all, listen to the music mentally. You have to understand it intellectually, and you have to also imagine how you play it physically, even with which fingers you put on which keys. That is key here, that you actually imagine all of those different aspects while playing through the piece mentally. That means if some of these aspects is not clear, of course you should stop, right? But you should aim for actually going through the piece and really imagine all the emotional aspects of it. That's very important. Another thing that comes to my mind is actually you can practice also memorizing it. So for example, you would look at the score, imagine it, and then you try to imagine it without the score. So you're actually playing it by memory without the score and without a piano. That's very similar to what chess players are doing. I've been into chess very much. And you can also do blind chess, so you just imagine the board and where each of the pieces is on the board, and then also you imagine all the moves, and you can play against each other by just naming the moves. And it's very similar with mental practice, so you would imagine everything in a kind of three-dimensional way, also with all the musical details, and then you go through it. First with the score, but then actually if you improve, you can also do that by memory without score. But that's of course a very advanced thing. Now, these are two types of mental practice. There's a third one, and that is actually you can practice difficult passages. So the more difficult a passage is, you probably don't only have technical difficulties, but also mental difficulties, just imagining the passage well. And that is when you also should practice mentally, so you can actually imagine all the turns and all the jumps and all the difficult passages at that moment. That's very important that you also support your practice process with mental practice from time to time. Not all the time, I would always go for like a 80% practicing at the piano, 20% mental practice ratio. That's just my personal recommendation, but that's generally what I would do. Also practicing technical difficulties. The last thing that I would also encourage you to do is actually starting new pieces mentally. That's especially good for pieces that are not so challenging technically, pieces that you can read very well, a style which you are familiar with. Then you can start practicing a piece mentally first by listening to the music simultaneously while reading it from recordings, maybe even at a concert. Then again, reading without the music and imagining it. So you always go in these baby steps. You start with the things that are easier, for example, reading it while listening to it, then reading without listening to it. You go from reading with music to actually imagining without the music. You go from pieces you know very well that you practice mentally to actually new pieces that you can learn completely without the piano. You know, there are stories about, for example, Walter Gieseking, who was a really famous German pianist, that he learned complete pieces by memory in the train and then sat down in the concert and played them by memory, which is very astonishing what the human brain is capable of, but you can all learn it. It's a special talent, of course, imagining these mental things, but it's also something that you can learn. So if you also want to learn how you can apply mental practice in your daily practice routines, and furthermore which pieces you should practice mentally or which passages, sign up for a free strategy session, for a free lesson with me, where we analyze your situation completely. We look where you are right now, point A. I've always said we go to point B, but actually want to go to point Z. So we actually look which steps are necessary for you to get there. And if you then want to continue working with me, that's fine. If not, you've already learned a lot in that free lesson. So take care, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I enjoy my beautiful day here in Siena, Italy. Ciao, ciao.